Teachers of Reddit, how have you secretly rewarded or punished a student? I used to always show up late for my 10th grade science class. One day, we had a little chapter review quiz at the start of class. And naturally, I am a minute or two late. So I walk over to my desk. And the teacher hands me my quiz. It's all really advanced questions comprised of polysyllabic biology jargon that I've never seen. Question after question is material that I'm pretty confident we have never ever covered in the class. After about 2 minutes, I look up to see how everyone else is doing on their quiz. Everybody was watching me, and when I looked up, they all started laughing. The teacher had printed up a single fake quiz with super complicated biology questions just to duck with whatever kid ended up showing up last to the quiz. Mrs. Cohen, you were a fun teacher. Thumbs up. Edit, since a lot of people asked. This was at Bard High School in Manhattan. Had a kid who was working a job late into the night in order to help his family while trying to finish his senior year in high school. His dad had been laid off and his mother was disabled. So they were barely making it. He told me that he worked late into the night and he had to miss days of school. 2. He did the best he could in my class but just couldn't pass after missing so much class. He was a senior and a good kid who needed my English class to pass. Figuring that the kid's life was already hard enough, and that his family was struggling enough, I secretly added some points to assignments he hadn't done so that his final grade went from a 50% to a 61%, just enough to pass and graduate. I don't like giving away grades. And I never told him, he just thought he had passed. I took a kid's phone because he was playing Clash of Clans and then lost a bunch of battles for him. You're a horrible person. I assigned a very high point value project to my HS Chem class. A bright, popular student turned in a half-ass effort. I knew she knew that she half-assed it. And I knew she had a conscience. So I handed her my gradebook and told her to fill in her own grade. I said whatever you write will be your grade. No questions asked. It was fun watching her squirm for 10 minutes. Begging me to make the choice for her. Well, what did she put? She gave herself a C+, which is what I would have given her. I think she learned more from my punishment than the assignment. I have a student this year who makes my life hell. She is blatantly disrespectful, nasty to me and classmates, and thinks I'm her personal waitress. Part of this is that every day she tries to hand me her work when I'm running around the room getting class started, but she does it in this manner that implies I'm her maid. I tell her every day to get up and put it in the turn-in box like everyone else. She itches and whines until some other classmate does it for her. Thursday she left her extra credit, 2 points on her test, not that much, on her desk like it was my job to go get it after class. I threw it away. I'm not sure this is punishment as much as expecting her to follow directions. But I can't honestly say I would have done the same to other students. Small, petty justice. But I did it nonetheless. If a student can dance on an essay where they obviously have no idea what they are talking about, I'll give them some credit for the attempt. For example, I ask you to discuss 3 major causes of the French Revolution, causes we covered in class. You don't know them. But in the essay, you try to extrapolate some possible causes using information you do know or attempt to morph the question into a topic you're prepared to discuss. I call that dancing. Because a good performance can be moving. And a poor performance is laughable. I've gone as high as 75% credit for a good dance. IMHO. It demonstrates a better mastery of the material than actually parroting back what I've been talking about for the last 4 weeks. Otto. If you pull any of that sheet that shows up on 9gag, like give this drawing of some stupid meme or whatever, I will burn your ass for the rest of the semester. You so much as omit a semicolon. And it's half credit at best. When I am doing final grades, if a good student is really close to a higher grade, I round it up. If they've misbehaved, it stays where it is. I do that. 2. I call it the intangible. And consider it a valid part of the grade. I'm at university level, though. So, It's not so much misbehaving as does this person really care about the subject? To be fair, I do explain the existence of the intangible in the syllabus. I've added points to students who are on the cusp of failing or would get letter grade improvements if they were behaviorally or socially good people. I feel it's worth rewarding people who try hard or have good character as much as it is worth rewarding content. I was the student in this case. At the very start of 10th grade, my mother was in a motorcycle accident where she should have died. Ended up in ICU, various hospitals, etc. for over a year. Meanwhile I have arthritis, so I get sick easily, psoriatic, genetic. During the third term, I was sick for a week. On top of already being behind from getting 2 hours a night to work on assignments because I went to visit my mom daily. I go to my European history teacher to explain it, and he immediately dismissed all my missing homework assignments for the term because he knew I was an excellent student who didn't deserve a poor grade for this. His words, not mine. I owe that man my 1B plus from that year, and he's been a major reason that I'm so motivated to do well for the rest of my high school career, along with my mom still being around. Obligatory. I'm not a teacher, but back in 4th grade I was yelling swear words in class. Little idiot me thought swearing was cool and all that, and got the teacher real mad. He then dragged me to the office and began lecturing me. Half pissed off. A few moments in, another teacher who liked me asked him if she could take over and handle the problem for him. And so I went with her afterwards. After a simple "don't do this again." Okay. She let me play RuneScape on her computer for the rest of the period. I also helped her create an account. I asked my professor if I could turn in a report by the end of the day instead of during class time, since I wasn't finished. He said it was okay. No problem. He ended up grading harsher than other students, and I'm convinced it's because I turned it in late. My feeling while grading is generally, hey, you got extra time. It better be extra good. It's only a little thing, but when I'm marking assignments, if I can see that a kid has really tried, I'll write them a little note like, "Great effort, Michael. I can really see your algebra skills developing. You have come a long way since I started teaching you, and I know you're going to get a great grade at the end of the year if you keep working this hard." I think there's something really nice about a written note. I do this especially for the quiet kids who might not want me to draw attention to them in class, but it's my way of saying I do see you working hard even though you think you are invisible. I was the student, and the secret kindness was from my guidance counselor, not a teacher. I skipped class a good bit in my senior year, but I was a huge goody two shoes. It wasn't a rebellion thing, just trying to handle some pretty heavy life circumstances at the time. I never went far, and most of it was just trying to stay afloat in schoolwork. I got caught skipping class one of those times. I was hiding in the school auditorium studying for my math exam later that day while my friend worked in the tech booth. This was the second time I'd been caught skipping that week. And since I was a girl and my friend was a dude, the teachers who caught us were sure we were up to something a little more devious than studying. They made very clear that I was in huge trouble, and that my guidance counselor, who knew me and what was going on in my life quite well, would be called. When she came in, she looked terrifying and told me I would have to come to her office because this was such a big offense, and told the other teachers that I'd be punished to the fullest extent. I was appropriately shaking in my little goody two shoes boots. But when we got to her office, she dropped what was apparently just an angry act, and quietly told me that I could stay in her office and finish studying for that math exam for the rest of the period, and essentially just kept watch for me the whole time. That moment really stuck with me, and the rest of her kindness throughout all of high school absolutely got me through a few of the worst years of my life. Kids who misbehave aren't always duck-ups. Man, great teachers and mentors can keep sight of that and really make a difference. I'm usually cool with a student charging their phone in my room, but they have to ask first. If they don't, I try to guess their password till their phone is locked for 12 hours. Or better yet, until they have to sign into iTunes again. I never graded based on anything other than academics. That is to say, the assignments, quizzes, and tests. No adding points for good kids or taking away points from bad kids. I tried to be as unbiased as possible. I didn't think it was right to give a student a judgment of their academic abilities based on non-academic things. I also don't factor in class participation. It feels too arbitrary. And while I do think it's crucial to get kids to participate, I just don't think taking a portion of their grade hostage is the proper way. Of course, I taught grade schoolers. I'd probably have a different opinion if I was dealing with high school kids. I never fudge grades one way or the other. However, when I know a student has really put in the effort and is genuinely trying, I'm more lenient with due dates. Within reason. I'd rather they learn the lesson and be able to apply it later than meet a deadline. Not a teacher but an occupational therapist that works in an elementary school. Had a guess how many Legos contest at the end of the year. This kiddo just has a sad life and always tells me how his siblings were happier before he was born. This is a sweet kid. Not a mean bone in his body. Guess who won the Legos? I'm not a teacher. But this happened to me. Long story short, my jackass father was trying to have me taken away from my mother. He contacted my guidance counselor, SP, and I'm still not sure what their arrangement was. All I know is that she started pulling me out of class and buying me candy and comic books. And she kept asking me weird questions about my home life. Before too long, she called me to her office and had a stack of 12 comics on her desk. Every Marvel and DC book that came out that week. She told me they were mine. But first I had to talk to a social worker and tell her a few small lies about my home life that would add up to me getting forced to live with my father. I told the social worker what was going on. And she called my mom. Gave me the comics. And sent me home for the day. Never saw the guidance counselor again. A friend is a teacher in an area where there are a lot of Indians from India. The parents normally come in feeling extraordinarily entitled and yelling at the teacher for having their kid receive a B rather than a A. He won't budge. Because, well, grades are grades. Because of that, he grades students with parents that are nicer to him with a tad bit more favor. As a student on the GI Bill, I was late for class one time and they gave a pop quiz that asked only for name, date, and class number, and I missed it by 10 minutes because I snapped a belt on the way in. I got credit once I walked into the door because my professor knew I fought in Iraq and Afghanistan and the Marines and declared that I had been late 5 minutes home from each war. Therefore I was good to go on the pop quiz. I used to play poker in chemistry with my friends. We always seemed to lose decks of cards, so one of us bought a 4-pack. 5 minutes into our game, our chem teacher noticed and confiscated the deck. But little did he know we had 3 more. Until a minute later when he confiscated the second. By the end of the lesson he'd taken all 4 decks. We collected them at the end and went on our way. Cut to next chemistry lesson and we're playing poker again. After 10-15 hands, we realize that no aces have come up. We looked through the deck and only counted 48 cards. Bit of a pain. But we had 4 so we could use the aces from another deck. Except none of those had them too. We looked up at our teacher and he was waving 16 aces at us. He said if we didn't all pass our upcoming test, he would give the cards back to each of us at parents' evening with our parents present. Not a teacher, but a student. I switched majors in college as a junior from business to geography. I had taken all the general ed classes. And I was in a hurry to learn something that would have something to do with some kind of a career. I took all geography classes in 1 semester, including intro mapping classes and senior level GIS courses. My advisor did bureaucratic magic to get me past prerequisites. I had one professor who taught 2 of my top level classes. I came in with no previous experience in the software we used or any of the general knowledge required for the class. I had my nose to the grindstone and put in more effort than I ever had in college. In 3 weeks my prof had me tutoring other students who weren't doing well in the class. The very first day of class I wrote down the day and time for the final exam. Fast forward to the end of the semester, I'm sitting at an 88% with complete confidence in my ability to get an A. I show up for the final. And it turns out I wrote down the wrong time for the final. Showing up for it at the end time. Not the start. I go to the professor's office to plead my case, hoping he'll let me take the final. He tells me I won't learn anything from this if he lets me take it. But he knows I put the effort into the class and my final grade will reflect that. Grades come in. And I got a 90% in the class. I needed one of those scientific calculators for a class exam, but my family couldn't afford one. My teacher took me to his office and handed me a brand new one in a box. He said I'd appreciate if you didn't tell anyone in class about this. Nearly cried. I was only about 13. I think I have it back to him like 5 years later, as I wouldn't be using it again, and told him to pass it on the next kid. Ta Mr. C. This isn't in secret, but I just wanted to share about my 8th grade algebra teacher. He literally saved my life. I was very depressed, suicidal at the end of my senior year. My class went on a Europe trip and about halfway through he noticed that I wasn't doing well. He came up to me and told me that he noticed and I am capable of anything. That is the first time anyone has told me that. Because of him I am doing well in my life. 2 years ago he suddenly passed away at a very young age, around 30. He was such an inspirational teacher and will always be missed. When I was in 9th grade, I had a principal named Dr. Ridgway. My life was just a big ball of crap. To be honest. I was bullied. Living in a hooker motel, it was trashy, that we couldn't afford. And I self-harmed. Dr. Ridgway went above and beyond for me. She obviously had to get the bullies. And she did. Anytime I felt the urge to self-harm. In school. I was in her office. She would let me sit outside the building and listen to music so I could calm down. And if it got too bad, I was allowed to call mom and go home. No questions asked. The most important thing she did. She asked other people who donated a lot of money to the school to help pay for us to live in a motel for another week. She did that 3 times till we got on our feet to live in an apartment. I've never had a teacher school worker mean so much to me. I need to go visit her soon.